Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is me. I am reading the Federalist Papers. As part of, I call it. I was starting to call it a daydreamer's reads to a son. A daydreamer reads to a son because I was minding my son and losing my mind a little bit because I hadn't read anything sophisticated in a while. It was just a lot of doom scrolling. And so I just decided that I would read to him as he ran around my legs. But now he's asleep. And I'm tying this effort into the Commoner President Project, which is a separate podcast that involves a normal person reading, writing, trying to develop my voice and my understanding and my position in regards to the prospect of serving the public. I don't necessarily know that I personally will run. I am saying, yes, I will run if there is demand, but I'm also trying to provide an example for folks who spend a lot of time being angry about politics and really nailing what's going wrong with the economy and with democracy. And with the plight of the poor, but never quite get to the point where they take all that information and all that conscientiousness and all that righteousness and turn it into a platform that would have them actually serving and writing law for the people. I don't know. I guess it's because the job is that unattractive. I guess it's because people don't trust politicians. But it seems self-defeating to have seen past the curtain and understand so much about corruption, for example, and have the ability to really put your finger on what's going wrong and not do anything about it. Now, anyway, this is not meant to be a podcast or like a vlog entry for that space. This is just to explain a little bit of the context as to why I'm reading the Federalist Papers now. From the Federalist Papers to the Constitution later on. I've already read it, but for the purposes of this podcast, and other books that deal with the prevailing theories about where America should go, from Abundance by Ezra Klein to oh my God, what's it called? The Trading Game by Gary Stevenson, which is promoting essentially a wealth tax, because he understands as an economist what's going to happen to the people when this extreme capitalism basically implodes upon itself for never having found any reasonable constraints. I'm trying to educate myself so I can really, with more confidence, deliver a message of pluralism and the value of a working class tax plan to the people. Okay. Anyway, but I don't know what to expect with the Federalist Papers. So this is Federalist Papers #2, and there's 85 of these essays. So in the first one, I will say that the first one had to deal with the introduction to the Federalist Papers, and it pretty much was an argument indirectly but it was an argument for pluralism. It was an argument that we can't, in order for us to be able to capitalize on the revolution and on the chance to self-govern, we need a better form of constitution, and there needs to be a federal government that essentially binds the powers of the 13 colonies and any states that come after that. And so the first essay is written by Hamilton, and now we are in Federalist No.2 concerning dangers from foreign force and influence for the Independent Journal, Wednesday, October 31st, 1787. J. To the people of the state of New York. When the people of America reflect, so I'm going to say copy when I'm reading the text, and then I'm going to say commentary when I'm making commentary, because I might interrupt this process. This is an active reading, so I'm going to try to respond to things in real time just so I can help cement and rephrase, I think, what I'm interpreting from the work. Okay, so copy. J, to the people of the state of New York. When the people of America reflect that they are now called upon to decide a question which in its consequences must prove one of the most important that ever engaged their attention, the propriety of their taking a very comprehensive as well as very serious view of it will be evident. Nothing is more certain than the indispensable necessity of government, and it is equally undeniable that whenever and however it is instituted, the people must cede to it some of their natural rights in order to vest it with requisite powers. It is well worthy of consideration, therefore, whether it would conduce more to the interest of the people of America that they should, to all general purposes, be one nation under one federal government, or they should divide themselves into separate confederacies and give to the head of each the same kind of powers, which they are advised to place in one national government. It has until lately been a received and uncontradicted opinion that the prosperity of the people of America depended on their continuing firmly united, and the wishes, prayers, and efforts of our best and wisest citizens have been constantly directed to that object. But politicians now appear who insist that this opinion is erroneous, and that instead of looking for safety and happiness in union, we have to seek it in a division of the states into distinct confederacies or sovereignties. However extraordinary this new doctrine may appear, it nevertheless has its advocates, and certain characters who were much opposed to it formerly are at present of the number. Whatever may be the arguments or inducements which have wrought this change and the sentiments and declarations of these gentlemen, it certainly would not be wise in the people at large to adopt these new political tenets without being fully convinced that they are founded in truth and sound policy. It has often given me pleasure to observe that independent America was not composed of detached and distant territories, but that one connected, fertile, wide-spreading country was the portion of our western sons of liberty. Providence has, in a particular manner, blessed it with a variety of soils and productions, and watered it with innumerable streams for the delight and accommodation of its inhabitants. A succession of navigable waters forms a kind of chain around its borders, as if to bind it together, while the most noble rivers in the world, running at convenient distances, present them with highways for the easy communication of friendly aids and the mutual transportation and exchange of their various commodities. And with equal pleasure I have as often taken notice that Providence has been pleased to give this one connected country to one united people, a people descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion, attached to the same principles of government, very similar in their manners and customs, and who, by their joint counsels, arms, and efforts, fighting side by side throughout a long and bloody war, have nobly established general liberty and independence. This country and this people seem to have been made for each other, and it appears as if it was the design of Providence that an inheritance so proper and convenient for a band of brethren, united to each other by the strongest ties, should never be split into a number of unsocial, jealous, and alien sovereignties. Similar sentiments have hitherto prevailed among all orders and denominations of men among us. To all general purposes, we have uniformly been one people, each individual citizen everywhere enjoying the same national rights, privileges, and protection. As a nation, we have made peace and war. As a nation, we have vanquished our common enemies. As a nation, we have formed alliances and made treaties and entered into various compacts and conventions with foreign states. A strong sense of the value and blessings of union induced the people, at a very early period, to institute a federal government to preserve and perpetuate it. They formed it almost as soon as they had a political existence, nay, at a time when their when their habitations were in flames, when many of their citizens were bleeding, and when the progress of hostility and desolation left little room for those calm and mature inquiries and reflections which must ever precede the formation of a wise and well-balanced government for a free people. It is not to be wondered at that a government instituted in times so inauspicious should, on experiment, be found greatly deficient and inadequate to the purpose it was intended to answer. This intelligent people perceived and regretted these defects, still continuing no less attached to union than enamored of liberty. They observed the danger which immediately threatened the former, and more remotely the latter. They threatened the union and threatened liberty. and being persuaded that ample security of both could only be found in a national government more wisely framed, they, as with one voice, convened the late convention of Philadelphia to take that important subject under consideration. This convention, composed of men who possessed the confidence of the people, and many of whom had become highly distinguished by their patriotism, virtue, and wisdom, in times which tried the minds and hearts of men, undertook the arduous task. In the mild season of peace, with minds unoccupied by other subjects, they passed many months in cool, uninterrupted, and daily consultation, and finally, without having been awed by power or influenced by any passions except love for their country, they presented and recommended to the people the plan produced by their joint and very unanimous councils. Admit, for so was the fact, that this plan is only recommended, not imposed. Yet let it be remembered that it is neither recommended to blind approbation, nor to blind reprobation, but to that sedate and candid consideration which the magnitude and importance of the subject demand, and which it certainly ought to receive. But this, as was remarked in the foregoing number of this paper, is more to be wished than expected, that it may be so considered and examined. Experience on a former occasion teaches us not to be too sanguine in such hopes. It is not yet forgotten that well-grounded apprehensions of imminent danger induced the people of America to form the memorable Congress of 1774. That body recommended certain measures to their constituents, and the event proved their wisdom. Yet it is fresh in our memories how soon the press began to teem with pamphlets and weekly papers against those very measures. Not only many of the officers of government who obeyed the dictates of personal interest, but others, from a mistaken estimate of consequences, or the undue influence of former attachments, or whose ambition aimed at objects which did not correspond with the public good, were indefatigable in their efforts to persuade the people to reject the advice of that patriotic Congress. Many, indeed, were deceived and deluded, but the great majority of the people reasoned and decided judiciously, and happy they are in reflecting that they did so. They considered that the Congress was composed of many wise and experienced men, that being convened from different parts of the country, they brought with them and communicated to each other a variety of useful information, that in the course of the time they passed together in inquiring into and discussing the true interests of their country, they must have acquired very accurate knowledge on that head, that they were individually interested in the public liberty and prosperity, and therefore that it was not less their inclination than their duty to recommend only such measures as after the most mature deliberation, they really thought prudent and advisable. These and similar considerations then induced the people to rely greatly on the judgment and integrity of the Congress, and they took their advice notwithstanding the various arts and endeavors used to deter them from it. But the people at large had reason to confide in the men of that Congress, few of whom had been fully tried or generally known. Still greater reason have they now to respect the judgment and advice of the convention, for it is well known that some of the most distinguished members of that Congress, who have been since tried and justly approved for patriotism and abilities, who have grown old in acquiring political information, were also members of this convention, and carried into it their accumulated knowledge and experience. It is worthy of remark that not only the first, but every succeeding Congress, as well as the late convention, have invariably joined with the people in thinking that the prosperity of America depended on its union. To preserve and perpetuate it was the great object of the people in forming that convention, and is also the great object of the plan which the convention has advised them to adopt. With that propriety, therefore, or for what good purposes, are attempts at this particular period made by some men to depreciate the importance of the Union? Or why is it suggested that 3 or 4 confederacies would be better than one? I am persuaded in my own mind that the people have always thought right on this subject, and that their universal and uniform attachment to the cause of the Union rests on great and weighty reasons, which I shall endeavor to develop and explain in some ensuing papers. They who promote the idea of substituting a number of distinct confederacies in the room of the plan of the convention seem clearly to foresee that the rejection of it would put the continuance of the Union in the utmost jeopardy. That certainly would be the case, and I sincerely wish that it may be as clearly foreseen by every good citizen that whenever the dissolution of the Union arrives, America will have reason to exclaim the words, of the poet, farewell, a long farewell to all my greatness. Publius. Alright, so, one, I don't understand who this is attributed to because it says J, and I'm not sure who J is. And let me see if I can figure that out. Who is J in Federalist Federalist Papers? Is it John Jay? Yeah, so it's Hamilton, Madison, and John Jay, who is, we have here in New York a John Jay College, which is a criminal justice university. Okay, great. So John Jay writes about, he wants to acknowledge that there are folks who want a union, and then he wants to acknowledge that there are folks that want several confederacies. He believes in the union. He thinks that it made a lot of sense for there to be a union, and he's also acknowledging that we have to slow down and really discuss this because it's only fair, but that essentially that a lot of this work has already been done, and that needs to be respected. And he's going to go on in further papers to basically break down why people feel the way that they do, and why he feels, that the union should be preserved. Now, one thing I want to say about the union is that right away what we're seeing, what some would interpret as a division, an acknowledged division between a collective body of representatives for the republic versus independent confederacies that break down the potential power of that federalist viewpoint, right? Because if you don't have a collective, and you just have individual bosses of different states neighboring each other, you could have a situation where they eventually other each other. You on that side, you're the problem, and then they could have conflict all amongst themselves, and then sort of defeat their own, could they fight another war divided? No, probably not. And so they understood the value of being united, and yet even by 1787, so 11 years later, 1776 was the revolution, right? So 11 years later, already folks are just moving past that whole shit, and they're basically saying, I don't want there to be a controlling body. They're not even arguing that there should be a king or an executive. They're saying that Congress should continue to be empowered, and that Congress, which takes representatives from all states who take the time to learn from each other and really get into the weeds of the philosophy of how to govern better, these individuals give Congress the credibility that it needs to be a good force for America, right? Congress shows that through its deliberating body is the example by which the rest of America can sort of base its rhetoric in, which is diplomacy, its philosophy, its time listening, and it's a collective experience. It's everybody. By the way, I've realized recently that collectivism is a boogeyman. It means something that most people who understand collectivism don't understand that it means. It's something that has a derogatory term in right-wing spaces, and specifically spaces where a heritage foundation, rhetoric, or dare I say propaganda, is playing at. So when someone tells you that they are interested in the collectivist strength, collectivist experience, the people, people power, they're against it. They sound. Well, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. I'm I'm actually kind of tired. Anyway, let me just break that off and just say that right at the beginning, we're seeing that there's a concern about who's going to decide where the power is, and placing power in the people through the Congress, placing power in, that Congress receives the rights of the people and then goes to work to sort of outsource the effort of governing well. That this was a willful... I don't understand why individuals have a problem with collectivism, as if they feel that means taking away your rights away, when so much of what we do in America requires a shared investment of time, energy, sometimes money, right? So, I don't know. In Federalist 2, basically just acknowledges that conflict is there. It acknowledges that John Jay supports, obviously, the union, and I think that's it. Okay, that was actually pretty cool. I like listening to the words written by these really smart guys from like a long time ago that continue to be, I think, of relevance today. And the essays are not too long, so I think we can get through them. Okay. Thanks for watching. Again, this is more content from the Commoner President Project, and this podcast is Daydreamer Reads to His Son. And why do I say that? Because I find myself dreaming of a world that could be but isn't, and it's from that space that I try to pull the energy to chip away at what our reality in this space could be, so yeah, and sometimes I was going to say something like it's just sorry, I was thinking something sentimental about my son maybe listening and learning and also connecting in some way. So anyway, whatever. This is part of a big homework job, and I'm working on it. So yeah, look for more from these. Thanks for listening. Peace out.